And a very good evening to everyone from the Institute of IT Professionals South Africa. We are delighted to have you join us. My name is Tony Parry, and it is my absolute privilege to be the host, the moderator, the question master, whatever you care to call me this evening. But more importantly, we have three esteemed guests who've joined us this evening. Excuse me. We have Nomthi Nelwamondo, CIO of Assupol, Dr. Stanley Mpofu, CIO of the University of the Witwatersrand, and Sandra Labella, who very humbly calls herself a technology executive. So welcome to our three guests. Very warm welcome to our delegates on the call. We are delighted to have you join us. And I'll ask the three guests to introduce themselves in a moment as part of our panel discussion. Before we do that, I'd just like to remind everyone, I'm so sorry, 1 second. I would just like to remind everyone of the 2021 IITPSA Joburg Centre for Software Engineering Skills Survey. We do hope that all professional practitioners will take part. The link's on our website, and if I get a chance later, I'll post it on the chat, but right now I've got to attend to our guests. So, starting from the top of my screen, Nomthi, welcome to you. Would you please introduce yourself to the audience? You can take 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to be a CIO, what makes you tick. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tony. I'm Nomthi Nelwamondo and have been the CIO of Assupol since 2019. I've been in the ICT industry for 20 years. I was previously the CIO of Liquid Telecom South Africa and also fulfilled the divisional CIO role at Telkom. And I've also held various diverse roles in senior management in IT, telecoms network, wholesale, and internet services. I came into IT because it was one of the first things that was made available to me through applications into tertiary institutions. I had previously thought I would be a medical doctor, but I'm glad that I was accepted to study IT. And what makes me tick is being able to use technology to make a difference in people's lives, because I enjoy working with people a lot. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Nomthi. It's always a challenge here is juggling things to find the mute and unmute, isn't it? Nomthi, thank you for that introduction. And Stanley, I hope you don't mind, but in my culture, it's ladies first. So Sandra, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please, and telling us a little bit about yourself. I know you're now well known to many of us, but your turn, please. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Tony. So, very much like our previous speaker, I initially hadn't intended to come into technology. In fact, I wanted to be a school teacher. And for those that know me well, will say I probably should have, because I tend to be quite bossy when I do things. But when I finished matric, I wasn't accepted into becoming a teacher. And my dad said, well, you know, everybody seems to be going into technology, so why don't you apply to university and do that as well? Which is what I went on to do. And I must say, for me, I think it's been the best thing that could ever have happened. Certainly in my years of tenure, I've grown to becoming very transformational in what I do. I love, you know, changing organizations as I work with them. And I've truly been privileged in my career. I've really had the opportunity to do some really front-facing things. You know, working with the regulators on clouds. I've fulfilled 3 CIO roles now, the last one being Group CIO of Alexander Forbes and the Unlimited. And certainly it's a career that, well, I'm actually getting quite sad that I'm getting to the age that I am, because, wow, it's growing faster and faster every single day. So I think we're in the best positions that we can as CIOs today. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Sandra. Interesting, and we'll come back I'll touch on some things with each of you as we go through the evening. A reminder to our guests, please post questions on the chat. We will get to them at the end unless I see something particularly eye-catching as we go through the afternoon or the evening, bearing in mind that I'm alone, so I'm trying to juggle both balls by myself. Dr. Stanley, Wits University, please tell us a bit about yourself. Stanley, can you hear me? Because we're not hearing you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead and introduce yourself. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm Stanley Mpofu. I'm the current CIO at Wits University. I'm a son of peasants with a mother who completed grade 3 and a father who never set foot in class, as there were no schools in the village. My IT background stretches back to 1994 when I passed the exam to qualify for COBOL programming training. I became a PC technician later, network administrator, and all these were positions I was in data via Transnet. Thereafter, I ventured into project management when I joined ESCOM. I became a program manager, I became a PMO manager, and then I became an executive in 2010. In all of this, I was always working within IT. I was when in my last executive role, I was responsible for ESCOM Enterprises group of companies, about 8 of them. And finally, I landed at Wits University in May 2017. So I've been there since then. Thank you.
Thanks, Stanley. I'm so sorry, my voice. 1 second. Let's try that again. This is Murphy's Law, isn't it? I do apologize. Unfortunately, it's that time of the year for me. So thank you all. I'm quite humble folk. You introduce yourselves each in a couple of minutes. So perhaps just to chuck it into the equation, and I really don't want to go and ask one person, then the other, because that gets very boring. So perhaps just starting off with the role of the CIO. And Sandra, perhaps if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you, but I'm going to give everybody a chance to chat about it. We acquainted ourselves together in 2019 when you won the Visionary CIO Award from the Institute when you were still with Alexander Forbes. But what do you think of the role of the CIO today? And I mean, particularly in light of what we've just been through and are still going through in the current environment with the COVID-19 pandemic and the massive changes that have come through technology. You know, what's your view, and how's it to be a CIO? You know, we've called this a CIO in the hot seat, but I doubt the hot seat's here. I think the hot seat's out there. So I'd be interested to know your views on that, Sandra, please.
Thanks, Tony. I think it's a very interesting question, and certainly one that has changed significantly in as little as, say, probably in the last 5 years, where the CIO used to be that person who listened to what business wanted, and they would ensure that they had everything ready so that a business transformational change was there. That's no longer the case. The CIO now of today is the one that is sitting with the business doing the strategy. They are now the transformational leader for the business. They are the one that is bringing in the new technologies. They're the one that are ensuring that they are an entrepreneurial mindset. So the way that it's changed is very different. We're not sitting, I want to say, in the dungeons, making sure that operations is working, because now we are more than just making sure the lights are on and backups are done. It's now making sure that service delivery is absolutely perfect, that digitization that is being delivered is where it should be. Without technology now, there is no more transformation of business. So we are that light, that candle that shines for the business today. It's a very different role. And as I say, it's probably really in the last even 5 years, as little as that it's changed that dramatically. So yeah, that's from me. Tony, thanks.
Sandra, before I let you go, do you see the role as being catalytic, as a catalyst for the business?
Absolutely. You'll see CIOs are now sitting at the executive boardroom table. That didn't happen previously. Your technologist was somebody that you went downstairs and you said, I want this program done, or I want this delivered, or make sure this backup is done. Now your CIO is sitting at the boardroom table. They are watching the cyber. They're watching the digitization. They are your person that's watching the architecture. They are your data stewards. And today as a technologist, if you don't understand that world of architecture and data and digitization and cyber, you're not there anymore. So absolutely, your CEO and your CIO are now linked. In fact, you're seeing CIOs becoming the next CEOs more and more, globally.
I think I must leave my mic on because I'm likely to get a change. Interesting you say that, Sandra, and I definitely will come to our two other guests. I was actually reading the Gartner Cio Agenda for 2021, and the first point that they come up with is the CIO's relationship with the business is stronger than ever, and needs to be stronger than ever. And I think that resonates with what you are saying.
100%, Tony. And today it's the CIO's role to make sure that if they are not invited to the table, they put themselves there. They have to have the tenacity now to go to the CEO who is not used to having the IT specialist there, and enforce that they're sitting at the boardroom table. Enforce that they are writing the business strategy. That your technologist today is writing your own CIO strategy, and you are part of making the business strategy. You are that business catalyst today. So 100%, Tony.
Thanks. I'm going to leave you, Sandra, but I'll leave you with a thought to cut back to you, because you say about the technologist being, and my question to you, which we'll come back to after we chatted to the other two, whoops, we've lost Stanley, is whether a CIO actually needs to be a technologist, but we'll come back to that. So time to ponder on it, because that wasn't on our list of questions as we said we're going to ask. Nomthi, do your views differ from Sandra? Support them in terms of the role of the CIO today and the position that a CIO finds herself or himself in?
Tony, definitely the CIO is no longer just a technologist, and it's also not just about leading a team of technology specialists either to improve customer and user experience using technology, but it has become the enabler, the influencer. A CIO needs to make sure that organizations remain relevant. I mean, we all know about the story of Kodak. CIOs need to play a big role in saving big and great companies that are stagnating, because their demise has a direct impact on employees, customers, and their families. So the CIO needs to be a business crisis manager, a business change manager, and a person who can inspire and build teams. It has become a dynamic role, relying on your old technology degree that you had in the past won't cut it.
Some of us have technology degrees, not all of us. but I think, Nomthi, just to follow, and I mean, Assupol, and I have to be honest, before you became a finalist and a joint winner in our Visionary CIO Award last year, I knew very little about Assupol, and I probably don't know a heck of a lot more now, other than, it's involved in things like funeral and retirement insurance and a whole bunch of things related to it, so excuse me for glossing over it. But I mean, that kind of, and I mean, I think, sounds like a terrible thing to say, but right now, probably quite a busy organization. But I mean, in an organization with that type of business, I mean, is it different? In other words, do you think an industry vertical makes a difference to a CIO or not?
No, it doesn't make a difference. Ultimately, Assupol is a business that has product and services that offer to customers. And we need to tap into technology to make sure that we make it seamless for our customers to interact with us and for us to provide that services. I mean, even our staff, we need to make sure that we are able to digitize the business, automate processes, ensure that our customers can do self-service. The types of products, funeral, life savings, it's types of products that you want to buy online at your own time when you want. And also you want the rep that comes and sells you these products to be able to come to you with tools that are mobile and they're able to sell these services. So the industry, the type of company doesn't make a difference. Overall, the CIO role requires one to know businesses, and not just one business in different industries as well, because as you know, financial services and telecommunications and other different industries are converging. So it is a dynamic role that requires one to keep one up to speed and relevant.
It's interesting. Thank you, Nomthi. It's interesting that you mentioned the rep that comes to you. Has disintermediation not been a problem in your particular business?
Pardon, repeat that question, Tony.
Sorry, I'm saying, has disintermediation, the removal of the middleman, not been a problem in your type of business? I mean, if you're still using reps, is that a business challenge in any way because of technology and what it's doing today?
No, interestingly enough, Tony, insurance or most of the financial services products are products that are sold. Mm-hmm. So even if we can put technology for customers to self-service, people still need financial advice, need people to explain a couple of aspects before they commit to a transaction. So not at all, they work hand in hand.
Thanks. Sandra, do you agree?
I do. I really do. You know, you can't put one type of person onto everybody. And some people like to call into call centers and they're okay with that. But you get those people that like to actually have an advisor, that like to have that face-to-face. So you can't paint one tall brush with everybody. Not great to do.
Thanks, Sandra. And just coming back to you in terms of the question or the topic or thing I mentioned earlier about, does a CIO actually need to be a technologist in this day and age?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that they still do need to. There's so many things that are coming in that if you do not understand the way that they're integrating now as a technologist and how it forms into business as well, I don't think you can make it. That's my own personal view. I really do, because the way that things are hinging, and the previous speaker said it quite accurately, you know, who thought that a supermarket would be selling data or you know, acting as a bank? And so, you know, the way that things are working today, I honestly believe you still need to be that deep technologist. You still need to understand, and that's why I'm talking about that entrepreneurship. You need to understand what new technologies are coming in, how you're going to put them into your businesses. If you're not a technologist, how are you going to do that? How are you going to understand that integration? So, yeah, I think we still need to be technologists. And gosh, that's what got us into it. That's what we love. Don't take that
Amen.
away.
But Sandra, and maybe just to share with the audience, I mean, how do you as a CIO, I mean, CIOs are not just traditionally, I know, having been one myself, but a few years ago, very, very, very busy. How do you stay on top of technology while juggling the balls of everything that one needs to do in the organization, sitting at the boardroom table, you know, understanding the business in its entirety, not just from a tech perspective? How do you do that? I mean, what tips or tricks do you have for our audience?
You know, Tony, it's a great question. And I remember when I got my first CIO role, and vendors used to knock on the door to come and speak to me all the time, I used to actually feel quite frustrated, until the one day I realized, hang on a minute, that is the people that are getting me to understand the different technologies that are coming in. And so I changed my mindset on that. And so now when vendors knock on the door to come and talk to me about something, I actually do listen to it. I don't have to take everything in, but I listen to it. So that is one way. The other way is the various conferences that we have. And yes, that is slightly more difficult today with dear old COVID in way, but you can still make it your mission to become part of conferences and understand what everybody is doing. And the last one is just doing general reading and general researching and understanding, following trends, looking up problem statements. And, you know, I mean, last night I sat, I don't know, for probably 2 or 3 hours just playing on LinkedIn, just going and having a look what people were posting about, And then when they said something that I didn't understand, I went and investigated it. And that's what you got to do. So yeah, I probably spent about 2 or 3 hours last night scrolling up and down LinkedIn. So there's some of the things that I do.
Thanks, Sandra. I just want to check, Stanley, are you back with us? It looks like he's sort of here. I'm not sure. I think he's struggling with connectivity. Nomthi, just from your side, tips and tricks for the audience in terms of being a CIO in the world today. What do you think are the key things one could consider and do? And what do you do, in fact, to stay on top of your game?
It's definitely continuing to read, make sure that I'm part of conferences, I remain relevant. But there's one thing I don't try to do, Tony, it is to remain a specialist in a specific area. While I still need to know technology, while I still need to know where technology is moving and the relevant roadmap, I am cognizant of relying on people who can specialize in specific areas, and that's how I build my teams, to make sure that I get the best people who've invested in specific areas to enable and help me take things go forward. And in as far as technology is concerned as well, as a CIO, what is important to me is to be able to translate all that technobabble into a language that people in the business and the rest of the company can understand. That's why I leave the specialists to the specialist people.
So just on that subject, and I don't know if Stanley's with us. He doesn't see, no, he keeps dropping off. Nomthi, in terms of those specialists, so the people in your business that I'm talking about in the ICT space, how do you get them to develop their skills? What skills are you required? And do you, in fact, think you have a skills gap in your organization at the moment? And if so, what are you doing about it?
So we look at where we are going, and as part of our digital journey, as an example, we are busy migrating into a hybrid cloud. So one of the things that the team is doing, they're being sent to courses to make sure that they are able to deploy cloud, they're able to manage it for themselves and not rely on the service providers. So from the different areas, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's architecture, whether it's developers, continuously providing them with an opportunity to learn.
Can see everyone.
And to train themselves so that they remain relevant and upskilled. So the company offers courses, but is also willing to invest in people to make sure that they are kept abreast on technology.
I heard this evening, I was talking to a colleague in a similar position as mine in Canada, and he was telling me that some research was done recently, and it's anecdotal because I don't have access to it to say how robust it is. But he was saying that apparently around 70% of CIOs believe that they have a skills gap in their organization that needs addressing, whether it's repurposing of existing individuals or actually filling gaps that they have. Stanley, do you have any thoughts on that, particularly in the world of academia? You're on mute, Stanley. Shame, I think he's really struggling with connectivity. Can you hear me? Okay. Sandra, would you like to try and field that? Please?
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Sorry, my apologies for that. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me on your side?
Sorry, Sandra. Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me, Tony?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, can you repeat your question, please?
I was saying that there's some research that has been done recently that suggests 70% of CIOs believe there is a skills gap in their organization, whether it's an actual gap or the repurposing of individuals that maybe are doing roles that are no longer required. But I'm asking, in the world of academia and academic ICT, does that hold good?
Yeah, it is the same. The previous skills that we had, not all of them are relevant for the digitalized environment that we want to venture into. Okay, you can't hear me. Can you hear me, colleagues?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me or not?
Yes.
Okay, I was saying there is some truth in the research that reflects that there are skills gaps in the current ICT space, particularly in situations that have developed recently in the ecosystem, like in the cloud environment. We do not have so much skills in that space. In the cyber environment, the skills are not the same. And it is true, yes, that there is a gap with regards to the skills that we currently require for the digital transformed state going forward.
Thanks, Stanley. Sandra, you were going to say?
Yeah, so for me, I think there will always be a skills gap if you don't deal with it at the time of developing your strategy. So what I'm saying by that is, if your strategy says that you are going to go into cloud and you're not in cloud yet, for example, if you don't already then start getting your change management and your training and the skills completed then already before you start executing, you are going to have a skills gap. So for me, skills gaps are only there if that planning has not been done ahead of time. You won't suddenly, have the right skills whenever you need them. So that's my feeling. And the skills are out there. It's just a case of training or bringing in. That's my opinion.
Sorry, thanks, Sandra. And in your case, I mean, you shared a little bit with your background, but what about the CIO, him or herself? What skills do you think are required? I mean, you shared a few of them, but and how did you get to where you are right now? You mentioned you went into tech and as opposed to going into teaching, which interestingly I did too. But and I'm just interested in keeping the CIO relevant is what are the skills that you think are really key at the moment?
For me, really, right now, it's around making sure that you truly understand security and cyber inside and out. And if that means going and doing Udemy certifications, then so be it. Architecting in the cloud, I think for me is quite a good one. UI, UX, it's the way of and I'm not even going to say the future, it's the way of the now. So if you're not understanding how digitization, UX, UI works, then you're not going to be there. Definitely the world of agile, how that whole agile work happens, and then around operational service levels. It's not just a case of doing the way that we always used to do things, and financing. So financing was the good old 1 + 1 = 2, but now you've got a different one with cloud coming in, because it's now around the cloud economics. Business cases don't look the same anymore. Economics don't look the same anymore. The way that you set things up aren't the same. So if you don't understand that world, you're going to get left behind, or certainly your organization is, because you're going to end up spending more money for the organization than you should. So those are a couple of the things that I think are quite key.
Thank you, Sandra. And just to chuck in a little bit of a variation, I'm going to read a question from the audience. And Nomthi, I'd like to address it to you first and then pass it on to the others. It's from Notile Mputi, who asks us, how does a CIO make decisions around digitization without negatively affecting the use and value brought through human capital in an organization?
A CIO needs to look at the business. As an example, at Assupol, how we've done this, we've looked at the Assupol business itself, which is a business of advice, is a business of paying claims. And we are putting in technologies and that will help them, the people who are doing all these processes, to do this work easier, faster, and simpler. And what we're also doing as well, we also train those people. So if there's a role that has been identified and is being impacted by technology and digital, those people are moved to another environment and trained to do other work. But what we need to be conscious of is to make sure that technology can never replace people, because at the end of the day, you still need human intervention to help and interact with customers, but it may be in a different format, and equally, we need to train people to be ready for that.
I'm not sure if the AI fundies would totally agree with you, but we'll touch on that. Now I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Sandra, there's an interesting comment here, which I think also it's a question from Riddick. I hope I'm pronouncing people's names correctly. And he or she, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, I apologize, asks, is the role of a CIO the same as that of a CTO? That sounds sacrilegious to me. What do you think?
So if an organization is not large enough to have a CTO, certainly your CIO can fulfill that role. But for me, there is a niche in a CTO, and they definitely are not the same. Your CTO today is the one that is, for example, taking your business strategy and making sure that the business architecture is ready to bring it down to a solutions architecture. They're making sure that all of the technologies that are there are going to be able to integrate. They're the ones that are worrying about the cost of doing business. So certainly there is a role for the CTO. Can they be combined? Yes, they can. But in a bigger organization, I would say no. There is a place for a chief technology officer, and there's one for a CIO.
Okay. Thanks, Sandra. And just in case the audience thinks I'm ignoring Dr. Stanley, I'm not. He's unfortunately keeps dropping off the call. I suspect he's struggling with connectivity. So our apologies for that. Nomthi, your views? I mean, is a CTO and a CIO the same thing?
Today we have what we call a CTIO for the same reason, because these two somehow they converge. While the other one is expected to look at technology from networks, from infrastructure, and the other one focusing on how the business is being serviced. They can't do it alone. Hence, for me, I believe in combining the role and make sure that there's synergies between the two in servicing the business. Ultimately, it's all about servicing the customer and business using technology, and they need to make sure that they can leverage from one another in supporting the business.
Thanks, Nomthi. And here's an interesting one, which I must admit, I have a passion about one of these areas, but I'm not sure that I would ever have considered them the same. Washington asks the question, what is the relationship between a CIO and a knowledge manager? And can these be used interchangeably? Sandra?
Oh, wow, what a great question that is. Gosh, are they a knowledge manager? Well, ultimately they are, but you cannot divorce the two. Your CIO of today has to have knowledge of all parts of the business and how they integrate with each other, as well as how they are integrated out into the rest of the world. So, are they a knowledge master? Yes, they are. They need to be able to make decisions on the fly, and they can't do that if they don't have the knowledge. And when they make that decision, they need to back themselves in that. There's no time for going back. So, that's an amazing question. So, yeah.
And it is, but maybe just to follow up on it before I go over to Nomthi, or maybe let me ask Nomthi that rather, so just to mix it up a bit. So Nomthi, I mean, if what Sandra is saying is that all CIOs have to certainly have a knowledge management capability, and I buy into that. But the question is, so if we say all CIOs could be knowledge managers, but can all knowledge managers be CIOs?
Mm-hmm. I agree that a CIO needs to have the knowledge manager skills and ability. I mean, these days we are talking about analytics. So if a CIO is to understand their business and is able to do the relevant analytics and and is also able to help the business make key decisions. That skill set is required, and the CIO needs to have the ability to do that. But like I mentioned earlier, they don't have to specialize and become a knowledge manager per se, but they need to be able to work very closely with people who specialize in that area.
Thank you, Nomthi. Stanley, I see you're back with us. You may not have heard the question. Do you think all CIOs have to have a knowledge management capability, and are all knowledge managers CIOs?
I think as a CIO, I think you need to have some, what I would call basic knowledge across the ecosystem. But you rely on your specialists or you align with your specialists, create an alliance with them in order for you to deliver what the business requires. If you take a situation where I work, I'm not an AI specialist nor robotic specialist, for example, but I have an alliance with some profs that specialize in that area. So when we want to find certain solutions to the business issues, we sit together and explore the different opportunities that we need to apply in order to find a solution. So one can say, yeah, to some extent, you need to have a good understanding of the entire ecosystem, but you do not have to be the specialist. I mean, a university is even a worse kind of environment in terms of specialists, because there you literally work with people who are almost like rocket scientists. So you can't have your own road elsewhere other than making sure that you work with them, you understand their expertise part, how it contributes to what you want to achieve on behalf of the business.
Thanks, Stanley. Sandra, I saw you discreetly shaking your head at the question about are all knowledge managers CIOs. Would you like to elaborate for us, please?
There's so much more that goes into being a CIO than just having knowledge. You know, and please forgive me the statement if it offends people, I'm not meant to, but you know, you get some people that come out of university and they've got all the theory and the knowledge. Let's call them being a teacher, but they stand in front of the class the first day and they actually can't teach because they've got the theory and the knowledge, but they don't have the skill. And I think that kind of applies to technology. You can't just have the knowledge and be able to go and be a CIO. There is just far more to it, far more skills that you need to be a good CIO. So no, I don't think you can have the knowledge and say, right, I'm a CIO.
Thanks, Sandra. So leading on from Sandra's question, Nomthi, what are the skills of the CIO today that are required?
The skills that a CIO requires to have definitely is diplomacy. It is, like I said earlier on, the ability to understand technology. However, being able to converse with people in English while referencing technology. It is having change management skills. It is about having crisis management skills. It is about having business skills across different industries, including, and more importantly, the one that you're currently working in. IT skills are important, but they're not the end all. A balance is required.
I'm sorry, so you are in the hot seat, so I'm taking you guys all over the place, and I sort of apologize. Yes, Stanley, by all means, please.
I want to echo what Nomthi said. I would have answered your question this way. I would say if you are going to be a CIO, you need to be a business executive. You need to be a pastor and priest at the same time. When I talk about being a pastor and priest, a business executive, everybody I'm sure understands that. But in the context of pastor and priest, I'm looking at your being empathetic with the user community, because you're dealing with technology that has rapid changes. And if someone does not work in ICT, they actually don't necessarily fancy the changes that you are introducing. So you need to exercise quite a lot of patience across the board, and be willing to deal with the fears and the ICT inadequacy, because even in your own team, you're going to find people who just get a little bit jittery when you start talking about cloud and things that they're not familiar with. So you preach to the business the technology solutions and assure benefits are tangible to gain trust and support. Nomthi already has spoken about a change manager, but I think one critical aspect within that space is also the communication skills, your ability to articulate yourself as a business executive in a meeting without necessarily venturing into IT lingua, for example, and show your good understanding of what the business is all about. And for myself, having spent 4 years in a university environment, I learned very quickly how to do these things by making alliances. Literally, the deans who are the bosses in the faculties became my friends, and it became very, very easy to interact. And the other thing is you have to take to be a servant leader, to take an active role and lead the entire ICT team and the business, so that at least there is a good understanding on concepts of that are part of the current ecosystem. When you talk about things like cloud, you talk about digitalization, you talk about automating processes, AI, robotics. Those things are not just everybody's daily bread. It's to some it's rocket science. So you need to take the role and almost work with some of the user community, so that at least there is some trust and understanding on the benefits of where you're going. But eventually, also you need to appease the CFO. If you are not in good terms with the CFO under the current circumstances, it can be very difficult, because some of the things are not necessarily tangible, like return on investment kind of things. You don't just see them immediately, and sometimes they've got policies of OPEX and CAPEX that are not necessarily applicable, say, if you're dealing with things like cloud. So you need to create that unanimity and making sure that there's unity of purpose with everybody, or all different stakeholders within the structure of your organization. Thank you.
Thanks. And we have another CIO on the line who's one of our awards judges, Adrian van Eerden from Gibbs. And Adrian says, he agrees with you, Stanley. He says academia is particularly democratic, so leading change as a CIO needs a heck of a lot of dialogue, counseling, and negotiation. And Sandra's nodding, and I'll come to you in a second, Sandra. I have the expression that says that no man or woman is an island unto him or herself. Your view, Sandra?
Yeah, it's absolutely spot on. The change management in what we're doing today is vast. The speed of change that is happening is probably faster than any of us can actually keep up. And so, you have to be that change manager. You have to allow your teams to fail with the speed that we're doing. There will be failure, and to make that okay, and make that a learning exercise in it as part of the change that we're driving. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Nomthi, did you like to add anything on that particular subject?
It's definitely, you can't do it alone. You need the entire organization to buy into the vision. So when creating a vision, it needs to be relevant to the organization, and you need to be able to show the different stakeholders what value you are bringing and why you're proposing certain changes, and also show what their role is going to be, so that you work with them towards the end. Because it's pointless, you come up with a grand plan, you execute on it, and nobody takes it up at the end of the day. So the importance of gelling with all stakeholders, from senior end to the lowest person in the organization, the very person that you may not think is relevant. I mean, to even include the person who's making tea in the organization, because it is about the organization. It is about talking about what this entire company is doing and who is it doing it for. And somebody as a cleaner can be an ambassador for you out there if they understand what you're doing and how you've done things. So we can't take it for granted. that we can do things on our own.
Thanks, Nomthi. And I'm going to ask both of you, and unfortunately we've lost Dr. Stanley again. But Sandra, I think a lot of us know what we need to do. I think the bigger challenge is how. How do we do it? And before you answer, there's a question from Notile again, who asks, what techniques do you employ, both of you, to help change your colleagues' mental models, especially around technology? How nicely worded is that? So what techniques do you employ?
It's a great question. And in fact, 2 years ago, it could even be 3 now with COVID. One loses the years with COVID. I think it was 3 years ago. I actually put myself on a ProSci change management course to learn how to effectively do change management, because it's no longer about just the CEO sending out an email about this change that we're doing. As Nomthi said, it absolutely is from the top to the bottom. If you've got somebody who stands every day with their cup of coffee and they're defacing what you're doing, they can derail that whole change. So, that's what I did. And I practiced that methodology. I'm not saying ProSci, is the only, but that's what I did, because there is a science behind change management. Change management is not about talking about it and sending emails, as I said. There is a science behind it. And if you don't get it right, that change will fail, and it can cost your organization a lot of money. So, that's from me how I do it.
That's when denial is not just a river in the north of Africa.
Yep.
Excuse me. Nomthi, your thoughts on the how? How does one? How do you engage with your executive, your board level colleagues? I mean, we know what we need to do, but how do you do it? What makes you successful?
What is important is to be genuine about the intentions that you're sharing for the organization, and to show why this change is important and what it means to the person who's the receiving end of it. So generally, I do green shoes exercises. I walk to the shops, to the branches, depending on where I'm working, to understand how this person is doing the work today and possibly how I can make a difference. So in identifying challenges with them, in identifying what could be difficult and how we could improve and how their work can be done differently, I'm able to have a conversation that talks directly at them and how whatever change that I'll be bringing will actually make their job a little bit easier. So I move away from theory about the change, but make it practical to the person and use simple language. I can't be the IT exec sitting in the office that is coming to talk about, I'm going to change this, but I'm the IT exec that says, when we sell to a customer, we normally do this, but we could do it better this way. And this is the proposed way of doing things. And I get buy-in in that way. And that's how I'm able to pick up change champions who help me and to take the change going forward in the business.
Thanks, Nomthi.
Tony,
Stan,
if I can add one thing, what's also important with change is generally change is not wanted out of a fear. So what our previous speaker said was 100% accurate. And you've got to find those people that are fearful and let them understand how this change is going to affect them, because that's what people actually just worry about themselves. How is this thing going to affect me? What's going to happen to my job? What's going to happen to my process? And so it's about really understanding that and nurturing and looking after that person, because once they feel comfortable and understand, and as our previous speaker said, plain, simple language, having that caring, you'll find you've got to work out who those people are. That also goes a long way to having a successful change.
Awesome. Stanley, your views on unfortunately you may have missed some of it, and I see you are struggling with connectivity. I'm really sorry for that. But if in the world of academia, particularly at Wits University in your space, how does one, you spoke quite eloquently about engaging with colleagues and specialists in particular areas, and you said at university you probably are engaging with rocket scientists, and I'm sure you are. But how do you do that? What are the tricks to that kind of engagement? What, maybe trick is the wrong word, but what particular tactics and techniques can one deploy to do that kind of engagement at CIO level? And we've lost him. Were you there?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've lost him. Oh dear. We've already asked you two ladies that question, so I'm going to move on for a moment because we are rapidly running out of time, and I'm so disappointed because I think we could go for another 2 hours. Welcome to Stefano Gallotta, one of our long-term IITPSA members, I think is joining us from the UK. Stefano has dropped one word in the chat. He says agile. I'm not sure what he means by agile. I assume he was answering a question about the technology and the techniques we can deploy. Your views quickly, ladies, on agile. Does agile mean anything? I mean, I know what it means, but is it something that you think about in your organizations?
Definitely, Tony. I mean, it's a way of work that we've adopted, and it does help in the change. I agree. It helps because we don't go and ask for requirements and then go off and develop for months on end and only deploy to business. And it's a shock, and they don't know what they thought they asked, and they are unable to use whatever you're providing. But if you apply agile skills, you work with them. So you develop prototypes, and you show and tell, and they're able to give input and adjust and make changes. So by the time you deliver the end product, they have been part of the journey throughout, and they know what to expect at the end. And it's easy for them to take up whatever change that has been brought in and take it forward and use in the business.
Thanks. Sandra?
Yeah, spot on. It's a methodology that I think is great. Is there a place for the old project management waterfall? I think in some certain instances there is, but definitely overall the agile methodology makes for having projects delivered to the business that they really want. They're part of it. They depending on the sprints every week or two, they're seeing what they're getting. They're part of the decision making, the maturity of having a product owner who's sitting with the team. Your teams are all feeling engaged with it as well. And of course, the other thing with having it is that because your teams are standing there every day doing stand-ups, etc., those people that aren't pulling their weight are soon highlighted. So, you then land up having that self-managed team who is executing as fast as they can. So I think it's a brilliant methodology.
Awesome. I see, Stanley. Thank you, Sandra. And believe it or not, we only have 4 minutes left. So from IITPSA, it would be totally remiss of me if I didn't ask our 3 visionary CIOs, what makes a CIO visionary? And Stanley, as we've got you, I'm going to ask you to field it first, please.
Thank you. My apologies to colleagues. I think I need to have a meeting with the MTN people. But anyway, what makes a CIO visionary? In my opinion, it's the ability to understand and capture the future through the strategy that supports a sustainable business and a model for future gains, and also be someone who is always ahead all the time. I think if you are in that space where you can capture the future, you strategically, you are showing support of sustainable business models, and you are a step ahead. I know it's not that easy, particularly for me working in an academic environment where everyone is very clever. It's quite a challenge, but yes, you need to be ahead of everybody in order.
Thanks. Nomthi, what makes a CIO
visionary and see things ahead of others?
Sorry, my apologies. I thought you'd finished.
I'm done. Thank you.
Nomthi?
A CIO is visionary if they're able to look into the future. I know we don't have crystal balls, but that is required of us to make sure that organizations are relevant. So it is an important role that we play and assist organizations to prepare for the future and to look at possible gaps right now that could potentially harm the organization and position our companies in a place where they are able to be sustainable going forward.
Awesome. Sandra, it looks like you've got the last word. We are fast running out of time, so thank you. And what is your view on what makes a CIO visionary?
Oh, I think it's about being that futuristic strategist, about being a business transformational leader, and making sure that you are integrated with the business, that anything new that's coming along, you seeing it way ahead of your business and bringing it in. You have the relationships with the business so that you are heard. I really think it's your role to take the business to the next level. We've spoken about digitization and data for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Well, the next thing's on its way. If you're not already looking at that and bringing that into your organization, then you're not a visionary CIO.
Stefano says, unfortunately, out of time, he says how to make the customer journey better. And I do think more than one of you touched on that earlier on in the conversation. Unfortunately, we are out of time and it is later in the evening, and I think we do need to respect that. But it has been an absolute pleasure and an honor to engage with 3 of our visionary CIOs this evening. Nomthi, Sandra, Dr. Stanley, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences and your thoughts with us. I do hope that those on the call who aspire to be our CIOs are as energized as I am and innovated, and I've got some ideas about how to go about doing that. Thank you so much from the Institute and from myself personally. It's been a great evening. We do appreciate you taking the time and sharing your thoughts, and please, to the 3 of our guests and to all our delegates, stay safe, keep well. Until next time, thanks so much.
Thanks, Tony. Great to be here.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Tony.
Thanks all. Bye for now.